So I'll just begin with a little summary. Okay. At approximately 11:30 a.m. today, police responded to the 100 block of Hospital Drive for a report of a man in a vehicle possibly armed with an explosive device. Members of Patrol, the Crisis Negotiation Team, Tactical Support Unit, K-9 Unit, and Explosives Disposal Unit, along with the Saskatoon Fire Department Emergency Management Organization and Medivie Health Services West, responded. Through continued investigation and ongoing negotiation with the man, it was determined that he was not in possession of an explosive device. Right around 2 p.m., the man voluntarily exited the vehicle and was taken into police custody under the Mental Health Services Act. Through this incident, we were in consistent communication with the Saskatchewan Health Authority as well as our partners from Partnering Emergency Services, and we were able to bring this to a successful resolution. A search of that vehicle did not find anything that would be a concern to public safety.
You say you voluntarily, sorry, I'm just looking at it here myself. You had negotiators on site and you voluntarily left the vehicle. Were you guys in communication with him then during the afternoon?
Correct. So for approximately 2 hours throughout the day here, crisis negotiator was in frequent communication with the man, and when we say voluntarily exited the vehicle, he did so by his own means. So that was through communication with our negotiator, but it did not require any further police intervention.
How was that communication happening?
So the communication was primarily done by way of phone.
Do we have any indication why this man was threatening these things?
I can tell you that early information may have been a misunderstanding with hospital staff and some of the information that he was providing. It's my understanding that he may have attended to the hospital for treatment of a possible chemical exposure.
Can you elaborate a bit on that?
I don't have the information to really elaborate on that.
So he attended the hospital for what he said was a chemical exposure, and how did that turn into a bomb threat?
So the initial information that came from the complainant, in this case that would have been staff at the hospital, to police, it was that this man was believed to be in possession of a possible explosive device. That was based on the information that they were seeing at the time. Once we were able to get our teams out onto the scene there, they were able to quickly determine through communication with this man that that was not likely the case. Of course, we still take all of those same precautions, whether that be for a possible chemical exposure or for a possible explosive device. So we were able to kind of respond to either of those scenarios, but in the end, neither were probable.
So just to reiterate, there was at any point there was no threat to public safety or any concern to the safety of any patients, anything like that?
Correct. The hospital followed their procedures for such an incident, as did the police service and our partner emergency services. Very early on in this incident, we were able to determine that it was not likely that there was a threat to public safety.
And what steps were taken to maintain safety and make sure everyone's okay?
So I can't speak to what the hospital's protocols are for an incident like this, but I know that the police service certainly would assist in whatever those protocols might be. So whether that is closing down roadways on the university or hospital grounds, on public streets, of course, we would look after traffic safety and things of that nature, and then whatever supports the hospital or the facility would need in enacting their emergency procedures.
Is that large of a response fairly typical for bomb threats that may come in?
It would be a fairly consistent response with this type of incident with the information as it came in earlier on.
And you said he was arrested and something about mental health. Can you please clarify that?
Correct. So he was apprehended under the Mental Health Services Act, which is an act that allows police to take someone into police custody and ultimately into the hospital's custody to seek treatment of mental health.
And what led you to believe that was the case?
I would not be able to comment on that.
Okay. Are there any measures put in place to prevent future incidents like this?
I think that this is an opportunity to really highlight the collaborative response from the SPS, Saskatoon Fire Department, Emergency Management, Medivie Health Services, as well as the Saskatchewan Health Authority, and all of us coming together in responding to this incident and coming together as kind of one whole city, whole community approach. I'm not sure if there'd be a way that we could avoid something like this happening in the future, but it's reassuring to know that we do have these processes in place to respond kind of as one whole unit.
And when did you first find out about this?
I believe the call came through about 11:30 a.m.
Would you be able to say, was he driving a white truck?
I don't have that information.
What was he saying?
Pardon me?
What was he saying? What threat was he making?
Yeah, all of those would be details of the investigation that I wouldn't be able to speak to at this point.
And it was hospital staff, right, that called that in?
I believe it was hospital staff that first had communication with him, correct?
Sorry, just to clarify, so first he came into the hospital and said whatever, like chemical exposure, and eventually it was determined that that's not what it was, and then he said he actually had explosives.
So to clarify that information, I can't totally speak to what he was saying, that's part of the investigation, but, and in the release it'll clarify this as well, the man did not enter the hospital. He was in a vehicle parked outside of the ambulance bay when staff first approached him, and communication was done through the window of the vehicle.
And he initially said,
I wouldn't be able to speak to that.
so initial of what did you initially determine, and then like how did you decide that it was a chemical exposure, and then how did that get to an explosive?
So what I can tell you is that the information that was initially provided to hospital staff would have resulted in them contacting police in the nature they did, and our response in the nature that we responded. I can't speak to exactly what was said through that communication. I don't even know that information, but the information that was provided early on was determined to be different than what police actually found upon our arrival.
So not a false alarm then? Or would you, yeah, is that a false alarm?
I think that the hospital staff, the complainants here, responded in an appropriate way. You know, like I said, we were able to respond and address whether it was in fact an explosives device, whether it was in fact a chemical exposure, whatever that might have been. The important thing is that we were able to respond very promptly with our partner agencies. And so I would say going forward, we would encourage anyone to report whatever information they have as best as they can to police, and I would say that was done in this case.